My name is Lauren Listowskis. I'm the VP of Community for Grit Health. I'm a cervical cancer survivor and currently the primary caregiver to my mom who has stage 4 ovarian cancer. And we are really excited to kick off tonight, being the first program in our 4-part mental health series, How Are You Really? If you don't know, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and sure, Awareness Month, you might see something on social media or have it in the back of your mind, but we really wanted to do something about it and talk about it and, not just tiptoe around. We really want to get into it with you all and really talk about things in a real way. So tonight's program, as well as the rest of the programs in this series, will be recorded. We will send out an email to everyone that registered once the video is available for viewing. And then just as a disclaimer, everything in this program and any Grit Health program is meant to be informational. Any medical decisions should always be discussed and made with your healthcare team. So you are welcome to participate however you would like. You can have your video on, video off. We love to see you commenting and writing questions in the chat, or you can just sit back, relax, be off video, eat your dinner, walk your dog, however you like to join us. And so with that being said, we can get started very soon. Like I said, I want to see those chat questions coming in. Because I will be kind of looking at the chat and then giving your questions from the chat over to the speaker. Because you guys get crazy in the chat and I'm like, we don't want Kristen to have to try and keep up with that. I'll do it. And then for our interactive component, we will drop a link to a Google slide. And this is going to allow you to anonymously participate in our interactive activity. So if you're on the computer or you can click it and do it, great. If you can't, you can write your stuff when the time comes in the chat and Chris will add it for you to the slide. So with that being said, I will go ahead and finally stop talking and hand it over to our wonderful speaker who's with us tonight. And she's joining us from the nonprofit organization First Descent, which she'll tell you about, and you might recognize her from other things we've done at Grit Health. And Kristen, go ahead and take it away. Thank you. And thank you to everyone being here tonight.
Thank you, Lauren. Thanks for the awesome introduction. And I think my favorite part about doing Grit events is just like the feel of it. It always feels a little more relaxed. And I love that and appreciate that. That being said, I am going to share my PowerPoint with you all. Get to that. All right, so I'm Kristen McMaster. My preferred pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am coming to you all today to represent this wonderful organization, First Descent. Just to give you a little background about myself, I'm actually an oncology social worker. I started out in that field back in 2005. I was doing my master's of social work at the University of Southern California, and I think even starting in my undergraduate career, my mom was a social worker and it kind of runs in our blood. I always knew that I wanted to do counseling, and I read about cancer treatment and survivorship issues, and I felt very kind of drawn to that community. And so from a fairly young age, I started studying oncology and the psychosocial impact of going through cancer treatment. And while I was at my master's program, I was connected to a faculty member there, Dr. Zebrack, who's now at the University of Michigan. Wonderful, wonderful man. And he introduced me to the unique world of adolescent and young adult oncology. And so I would say that's kind of my area of expertise, or where I have the most kind of background in, is working with folks who are in the ages of 18 to 40 during cancer treatment. And I may speak to that group throughout this presentation, but I think a lot of this will resonate with everybody, regardless of where you are and kind of your age journey and when you were diagnosed with cancer. But I am going to kind of speak to that community more specifically with through the work that we do with FD. And so following my master's program, I worked over at UC Irvine Cancer Center and started a psychosocial support program there for young adults. And who were diagnosed with cancer. So I met any patient who came through our doors who was in the age bracket of 18 to 40. And then we had other social workers who worked with the general population. And a majority of like what I came to know and working in oncology was all in the hospital setting. So it was like either, in the infusion center or before someone went to go get their radiation treatment, maybe when they're first being diagnosed or being told the outcome of their treatment in the hospital, at the hospital bedside. And one of the things that I realized was that for a lot of my patients, I'd show up and I'd want to talk about their feelings and how are you feeling? And a lot of them were still in that survival mode of just trying to get through treatment and trying to survive. And so I think it's really hard for a lot of folks, and this is just a part of our wiring, to tap into the emotional impact of what you're going through when your body is just trying to survive through that experience. And during that time, I was asked by First Descents, this is before I worked for them, to be on their board. And they said, we really would like you to go to one of our programs to see what we're all about if you're going to serve on our board as like a mental health advocate. So I went out to Kalispell, Montana, and this was probably about 10 years ago when our programs were quite a bit different. And I was just blown away by the space that our participants were in and how different they were able to kind of show up in that moment. I was so used to having to force conversations about the emotional side of cancer, being in the hospital setting. And on these trips, we pull people, especially our young adults who are busy with work and kids and life back home. We kind of pull them out of that space and fully immerse them in our week-long program. And I think it being a separate space and also the timing of it, people really can kind of dive into the emotional aftermath of cancer. And so much of that, from what I've seen, happens post-treatment, or when you've paused treatment. So you've lost your medical team, you've lost your social worker, family and friends think, oh, you must be doing okay because, you're cancer-free right now. So you must feel better. And I think the truth is that for a lot of people, it's after treatment when the emotions creep up and the depression hits and the loneliness hits and the sadness hits and all those feelings kind of take over and you lose a lot of that support structure. And so I say all this to kind of frame like why my heart is so invested in this organization. And that was a long time ago. I actually just hit up FD 3 years ago and basically forced them to hire me as their mental health resource specialist. Because I never forgot like the experience I had out in Montana, seeing what these programs can do for folks. And so that's kind of how I found my way to them. And now I serve in many different roles, but I'm like their mental health person. And I also help lead programs and volunteer. So that's kind of my background with this organization. So what we do, our mission is to take young adults ages 18 to 45 impacted by cancer. And we've also now started running programs for folks with MS and also our healthcare workers who've been on the front lines through COVID. And we bring them out and offer them an experience with the outdoors. So we partner with different outfitters and we run programs all over the country. We were doing international programs, but we've had to put a hold on those for now because of COVID. But we partner with outfitters and we give people a 5-day experience where we provide their housing, we stay in lodges. We provide 2 chefs now, which has been a new development for us and just kind of recognizing the importance of nutrition and giving people good food. So the chefs cook all 3 meals for our participants, the lodge, the food, the outfitter payment is all covered by First Descents. And we partner with outfitters who we've known for many, many years, who we trust, who understand our community and what we're out there to do. And it really makes a big difference because we're taking people out either kayaking, surfing, or rock climbing. I am a surfer, but I am terrified of the river and I'm also terrified of heights. And so I've been out on all 3 of these programs. And I have to say, like, our outfitters are so good at taking anybody from any background or experience and making them feel comfortable in that space. And they're able to kind of adapt the difficulty based on that person's kind of unique, way of showing up, however that may be, if they're super experienced in the outdoors or not. So we try and make it inclusive for everybody. And so all of that is included with just being a participant on one of our programs. The only thing our participants pay for is sometimes travel. And if they can't afford that, we do offer travel scholarships to them. So,
I'm just
sure.
gonna cut you off real quick, chime in.
Yes,
So I have actually been on a first descents trip in the past, about a year and a half after I was diagnosed. And I know we'll share the information later on how to check out the organization and put in an application for programs. And exactly as Kristen said, it doesn't matter if you have any experience. I literally hate kayaking, and I chose whitewater kayaking as my trip. Like, okay, cool. And I loved it. I'm still connected with the First Descents community, and got to know some really great people that actually live in my area now. And as she said, totally free, and even scholarships to help you travel to those destinations.
Thank you for sharing that, Lauren. Yeah, it's so funny. I screen a lot of our participants before they go on programs just to see if we need to do any special accommodations for them, not to screen them out. And so many people come on our programs who are, a lot of people who are afraid of heights go on our rock climbing programs. We have tons of people with like social phobias who don't like to be in groups, but they come to challenge themselves. And it's so beautiful to like watch us be able to manage those fears in like a really graceful way and help people overcome that. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. I appreciate that. And I think what I might do is come back to this video. I do want to show it, but I think I'll show it at the end. It's kind of a broad stroke of, what we do at FD and how impactful it is. But I'm going to hold this to the end, and then maybe after we do our activity, we could watch it to kind of close things off. So what we're here to talk about today. So I think that most of the participants I talk to before they go out on their program, one of the things that they say that they want to get out of our program, I think at the top of their list is some kind of reconnection to themselves. So many kind of just describe this feeling of like almost being like a zombie inside of their bodies, because I think a lot of us cope when we have a physical trauma like that by dissociating from our bodies. So kind of stepping away from our bodies. And a huge impact on, going through something like cancer treatment, there's a huge impact on your self-esteem. And I want to kind of start off by kind of distinguishing the difference between self-esteem and body image. So both of them are subjective, right? So it's what we create and how we feel about ourselves. Self-esteem has to do with how we feel about our internal self. So it relates to our self-worth or how we value ourselves. And there, of course, going through cancer treatment, people can come in with really strong self-esteem, which can kind of help to be like a buffer for them as they go through treatment. And there's been research to show that people who have a lower self-esteem really have struggled the most with depression and also kind of a breakdown in their social support. But I think the truth is, even if you have a really strong self-esteem going into cancer treatment, it is going to rattle that for almost anyone going through it, no matter what. So when you break down self-esteem, what it's talking about is your self-confidence. So the trust or the faith you have in yourself. Do you feel you're capable of being able to do things anymore? A feeling of security. So feeling just safe inside of your own body. I think all of us who've gone through, some type of trauma can relate to that kind of angst feeling where you just want to crawl out of your own skin, where you don't feel kind of safe inside of yourself. Identity is such a huge one. And I would say for anybody going through, cancer treatment at any age, but it really breaks down like how you identified yourself. For a lot of parents having to step out of a parenting role, or as a partner, if you have to step away from work and you really identified with your work, it breaks down that identity. And then all of a sudden you're hit with this new identity, which you didn't really choose or ask for, which can be pretty jarring and unsettling. And then the last one is feeling of belonging. So I know this one is particularly huge for the young adults I've worked with going into cancer centers, not seeing anybody in their age group, feeling like they're out of place. Should I even really be here? Why is this happening to me? There's not a sense of belonging when they enter those hospital spaces or the medical spaces. And then even worse is like when we reintegrate after cancer treatment, trying to go back into our family systems or our friends systems or back to work and feeling like I just don't belong here anymore. Like that feeling tends to kind of disappear after you go through a life-altering illness like cancer. So I'm breaking this all down to kind of shed light on why self-esteem is so impacted, right? When you go through something like cancer. Yeah, Lauren, did you have something? Oh, no. Okay.
I was just shouting out with the little clapping emoji.
Sorry. I am not the most technology advanced person, as Chris knows very well. I thought you were doing a hand raise, so thank you for that. So yeah, and it's, self-esteem is like the lens in which we interact with the world, right? So it impacts your decision making and your relationships and your just overall well-being. It's such a huge thing. And so yes, so that is part of what we are going to focus on today, and how programs like FD can kind of help improve that, but also just how it's impacted by going through something like cancer. So body image. Body image is similar in that it's also subjective, and it also has a lot to do with that feedback loop that we're sending ourselves and what we're telling ourselves, but in relation to our body specifically, right? So how we feel about our body on like a more kind of physical level. And there's been a lot of research done. I think, the notable one here, and this goes across all age groups, is more than half of survivors report struggling with their body image. And this can impact, just as self-esteem does, so many different aspects of your life: your mental health, how you feel about yourself, your physical health, how you're taking care of yourself, your confidence, and how you're interacting and relating to other people. And one of the things that has come up, like when I've worked with people who are trying to kind of get back to their normal life, is that they're faced with these constant reminders of how their body failed them. And so it's hard to move past that without some real healing. I mean, things like your scars, you've lost your hair, maybe it's grown back differently and it's curly, or it's a different color now, the changes in shapes to your body parts or your whole body, weight gain, weight loss, changes in your sexual functioning. There's just so much that happens to your body through something like cancer. And, not always, it's not for everybody, but for a lot of people going through cancer treatment, this is the case. And I think the biggest one that does kind of touch on everybody who's gone through cancer is the changes in what you're able to do. So like if you're fatigued, you're not going to be able to do the same activities you once did. If your balance has changed, or you have neuropathy and you can't feel quite as well in your feet and your gait is off, you're not going to be able to have the confidence that you had to do what you once did, which is a huge part of that, like, my body has failed me, that continuing kind of storyline that carries on for folks even post-treatment. And this is anecdotal of things I've heard, like participants that I've worked with say, I feel like a stranger in my own body, or I don't know my own body anymore. I feel like my body has failed me or let me down in some way, or I feel totally disconnected from my body, almost like a zombie, just kind of moving around, like the two are completely disconnected. So these two, I think, are so huge and part of the healing that has to happen when you get through something like cancer. Any questions so far, Lauren, or?
Just, kind of some comments, everyone kind of relating. Just a reminder, if you do have questions, you can drop them in the chat at any time. You don't have to wait. But yeah, I know a big part of me joining any community, whether it was the FD community or the Grit Health community, hearing and knowing you're not alone in those thoughts is, huge, huge, huge. You're not crazy for thinking these things about yourself whatsoever. So it's all, unfortunately, very normal.
Yes. Yeah, the not feeling alone in our struggles is probably like one of the greatest gifts we can get from meeting other people who've been through shared experiences and sharing our own experience. Yeah, so I'm glad y'all are feeling that, and please throw any questions my way. So I'm going to start off with, we're going to talk about the impact of FD and why it works and why we've shown it to work in these, specifically in self-esteem and body image. And, like any good speaker, I'm going to start with the research that we've done, kind of the hard facts, and then I'm going to move more into like my own kind of observations as a mental health professional going out on these programs and how I've seen it kind of work. So strangely enough, Dr. Zebrak, the same faculty member who supervised me at USC, who's now at University of Michigan, he stayed connected with FD, and he did research for us a few years ago on the impact of FD and what are the actual shown effects of coming to one of our programs. So his top findings, and I did not create this presentation based on his research. It just kind of coincides really nicely with what we're talking about today. But his top findings from his study that he did, so he did a pre and post kind of survey with our participants, were an increase in self-esteem, body image, and participants' ability to cope with cancer and its ongoing effects, which is exactly what we're going to kind of lead into today. And one of the things that I just wanted to highlight, I love like pairing research with quotes. And this was a quote from one of our participants. And I think it really speaks to the transformation that I see. Like if I was going to just take a one-liner of what happens to people when they come out on our programs, it would be this. And that is, while the doctors and medicine may have saved my life, First Ascents taught me how to live again. And it really, like my best friend, one of my best friends from college just finished his treatment for leukemia and went to one of our programs. And I really felt like I had lost him, like a part of him kind of permanently when he went through his treatment. And he went to one of our programs and called me after. And it was like, oh my gosh, he's back. Like I could feel it. I could feel he had come back to life in a lot of ways. And so this just kind of speaks to that, like reconnecting with the body and coming back to life and kind of a metaphor. So this is an infographic that Dr. Z came up with for us. And it just kind of, it's a visual, story of what our programs do for folks. And these are like real outcomes from the surveys. So an increased perception of body image, that was a big one that came out of the surveys. Increased self-compassion, which is so huge if you are trying to repair your body image or your self-esteem. Having self-compassion is like, you absolutely must have that if you want to work towards those other things. And then self-esteem went up. What went down? Levels of fatigue, which I credit to our amazing chefs and putting people in really exciting experiences and kind of bring that life back. Alienation, which is like that feeling of being alone or isolated from your peers. And then depression also decreased. This is a more detailed graphic. I'm not going to read all of these to you, but I love this because it incorporates what our kind of heart's passion is, which is like bringing people into the outdoors. So 81% of our participants reported increased self-efficacy, which is really closely tied to what we're talking about today. It's just your belief that your body will be capable of what you want it to do. The 17-7 decreases the number of people reporting depression before and after our program. 100% of people reported it helped them cope with their cancer, which is what we just want everyone to get out of it. And this was from the narratives that people wrote in the surveys. They said that they felt a reconnection to their body and increased resiliency, which is one of my favorite things to focus on. It's the ability to adapt and overcome challenges. So I love this. It's a great kind of photo snapshot of, what we're trying to do out there, and incorporates the outdoors, which is awesome. Okay, so moving away from the researched part, this is like full disclosure. This is my own personal writing of observations of what I've seen being out on programs. I go as a volunteer and I also help lead programs. So I try to put my mental health hat on sometimes and really get at why it works. But I think I want to start off by just acknowledging like being present is like a necessity to having any of these things work. And I know that when I step in front of the ocean or I step in front of a mountain and I am out in nature, it kind of forces this presence to happen where I like feel human again. And I think I speak for everyone at FD, like we are all lovers of the outdoors. I surf all the time. That's kind of like my go-to thing. And we really believe that it's nature and being outside and being in wilderness spaces that like can help keep people sane and make people feel better. And so we live that in our day-to-day lives. And that's the gift we want to give to the people who come on our programs. The other thing that we're trying to incorporate more in our programs, and this is relatively new for us, but I fully believe in this practice, is mindfulness and meditation. And so we started incorporating mindfulness in like our morning kind of schedule before we go out on activities. When I go out on programs, I love yoga. So I'll just lead some casual yoga in the morning, just help people like kind of check into their bodies. So I think like those two are kind of, they're starting points for like why the rest of this works, is like being present, being mindful, and being out in nature. So the three pillars that we're going to kind of go into and the transformations that happen, the first one is reclaiming your physical body. So actually getting back inside of yourself. The second is finding a community. And the third is rebuilding your self-esteem and your confidence. And our hope is that by bringing people out, we send them home and they want to incorporate this into their lives back home. So first part, so reclaiming your physical body. So we use this motto at FD, challenge by choice. And I really mean this when I say, like, we have people from all over the place who come to our programs with varied level of experiences, body shapes. I mean, we try to be as inclusive as we can possibly be. And our outfitters are really skilled at being able to set up for kind of easier ways to do our activities and then harder ways to do our activities. So anybody could show up to our programs in that 18 to 45 age bracket, I should say. But we use this motto of challenge by choice. And I think this is like the most powerful part of our program. So when I think about, if I put myself in your shoes of, having a cancer diagnosis, it's not something that I've chosen. It's not something that I've not done something that, has caused me to have it, which I think is so often like a lot of the patients I worked with, it's all of us kind of search for a reason for bad things happening. And in the process of doing that, we can create a lot of self-blame that isn't really necessary. And so I think looking for reasons of like, why me? Why did this happen to me? Sometimes can break people down even more, when the truth is sometimes it's just bad luck. Sometimes these bad things just happen to folks. And so you're put in this position where you're hit with this diagnosis. All of a sudden you're faced with your own mortality. You haven't chosen this, right? So your power is kind of stripped from you. And the thing that's letting you down is your body. So at first sense, we have participants who have chosen to be out there. They choose to come out with us. They put themselves in what can feel like a life-threatening situation. Being out on a river, out on a rock, or out in the ocean for the first time can be very stressful for people and feel like you might die, but they're choosing to be out there. And there's a certain empowerment that happens when that shift, so they've chosen to be there, they're putting themselves in the situation. And then the only thing that's going to get them through that experience is their physical body. Like you have to go into your body to get through the experience. And so one of the first things that happens, I think, is people kind of re-enter themselves in order to get through the activities. And I think that shift and like that sense of power again over I've put myself here and now I have to rely on my body is a huge power shift in kind of helping them reclaim their bodies when they're out at our program. The progression of what I see happen is like the moments, the first days out on the rock or the river or in the ocean, there's this like panic, like, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? I can't do this. And this feeling of like, my body's just going to let me down again. That's kind of like a fallback that can happen initially. And then the realization that there's only one way to go up this, wall or down this river. And it's to rely on your body and to trust your body again. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this more in a later slide, but there is, we do push them into situations where they're going to fail, but they come back from it time and time and time again, which is a beautiful part of why this program works. And what I see happen is I can rely on my body to get me through this experience. Like that's the outcome. That's where you leave the program. Lauren, did you have something?
Yeah, just, kind of listening in and going off some comments in the chat. So, for instance, say you're, out of the age range or something like that for first descents, what can you do on a personal individual level to really kind of safely challenge yourself or kind of get the same effects that you might get from a first ascents trip?
Yeah, one of the groups that I've gone out with a bunch who I find like super safe and reliable, it's not a cancer community group, but the Sierra Club offers amazing trips and they have scholarships. They can be a little bit pricey, but they do offer scholarships. That I would highly recommend looking into. They do trips all over the country and international. They have kayaking, they do backpacking. And I've gone out just to challenge I don't feel totally safe backpacking on my own. I like going in a group and it has a similar kind of vibe to it. I mean, it doesn't have that cancer connection that our programs have, but it has the outdoor connection and you're kind of in the safe, space where you have guides who can help you if something goes wrong. And I would also say, like, if folks are interested and you have aged out of our program, you can always go as a volunteer. And the volunteer experience, like you don't get as much of the activity, but you certainly get like the experience of being a part of that cancer community. You do get opportunities to go out kayaking, rock climbing, or surfing. It's just a little more limited. And I want to be real, like there's cooking involved and doing dishes as a volunteer. That's just part of what comes with it. But that's another way to kind of get a similar experience. And Chris and I had talked about this, and I'm going to try and put together like a resource list of some other alternatives for folks that we can send out to the group that is attending today. So I'll try and pull more together. That's just like off the top of my head.
Yeah, that's great. I know somebody wrote, in the chat, just hearing this and hearing how kind of choosing to challenge yourself in some new way, even if it's little, right? Like go try new food. That's something, right? That you would normally never do. And so, Allie wrote in the chat, just hearing all this is really making me want to take the plunge and take a dance class I've been putting off.
Totally.
So.
And I mean, you don't have to go out in the middle of nowhere rock climbing. You can find a rock climbing gym, and there are the outfitters that we use for all of our programs. There are these folks all over who you can, pay privately to take you out kayaking or just to do any new experience. And you're totally right, Lauren. It doesn't have to be this kind of extreme sport. Just doing something new will shift your perspective a little bit. So it doesn't have, and we actually, FD for the first time, through COVID, we had to do more local programs and we really shifted into doing things like hikes and like more low-key activities. And I have to say, like, they were just as impactful. I think that community piece is just like the biggest draw. So yeah, agreed. This is I love this photo. This is one of our participants clearly reclaiming their body out on the water in a kayak. So we've got a photo paired with all these different aspects of FD. So this is, probably my favorite part of our programs. I have been a counselor for many years now, and I can say with great humility and all honesty that I can never offer, a survivor what another survivor can offer them. There is something so special about looking at someone in the eyes who has been through your experience and just feeling that connection with them. The community that we have on our programs and that you can find in other programs and support groups is just unbelievable. And I think that was the other thing that kind of like blew me away when I volunteered at that first FD program, was just seeing the power of that peer-to-peer support and how organically it happens and how instantly it can happen. Our participants are like a family when they leave. And like Lauren said, they keep in touch, they stay in each other's lives. You feel like you have a friend for life. And one of the things, like in terms of body image and self-esteem, that I've noticed in talking to people who are trying to like reintegrate into their old spaces. So let's say you went to yoga class before you got diagnosed and you try to go back to that yoga class or spin class or, kickboxing, whatever. And you're surrounded by people who have not gone through cancer treatment and they're at the peak of their, fitness level and they're working out as best they can. It can almost feel more alienating trying to just go straight back into that when you've gone through treatment, because your body is not functioning the way it once did. And seeing other people who don't have that shared experience can really increase that sense of alienation. and kind of ruin the experience, to be honest. I've heard people just walking away from things they used to love because they couldn't do it the way they used to, and they couldn't find that new normal for themselves. So one of the things, like the beautiful parts about our program, is that this like feeling of I can't because of my cancer. So when they come out to do one of our activities, kind of goes away because you're surrounded by other people who have had cancer and they're going to do it with you. So you have this sense of like, oh, I can, these folks are doing it with me. Or maybe this person who had, a more severe treatment, maybe had an amputation or had a brain tumor that's impacting them more, is doing it. So I can do it too. I mean, I'll share personally. Like I said, I'm terrified of heights, and I went on a rock climbing program. And I was out there with a young woman who blew me away. She had her right leg was amputated from the knee down, and she was just flying up the rock. And I told myself, like, Kristen, if you don't get your butt up that rock, you will never forgive yourself. Like, it was so inspiring. And I overcame that fear of heights, like on that trip. And so I know what this kind of group support can do. And I see like the greatest support that our participants have is from one another. Like, they are just cheering each other on through the whole thing. There's the sense of camaraderie going through this kind of new experience together. And there's this feeling like I'm with others who understand my struggle and they have my back through this whole experience, which makes the failures of trying to learn something new come a little bit later. So I think, that first notion of I can't because of my cancer quickly changes into we're in this together and we will overcome this together. And that part is just so beautiful. And this was from one of our participants. My community is stronger than my cancer. And that's definitely like the feeling that we are left with when you leave an FD program. And the part of it that I just think is like, can't match that. You can find that in other communities, but that peer-to-peer support is so huge. This is a wonderful picture that kind of represents that. This is our little eddy flower out on the water, group gathered up, doing a little talk before they head out on the river. So love that. So finally, the rebuilding of self-esteem and body image. So I think that probably one of the most frustrating parts of our program, but it also is the part that rebuilds people the most, is like this, we put them in a position where they are going to fail at certain points in the activities that they do. And this will be true of anything new that you're trying. And there's this wanting to like kind of give up initially. But with the help of like the group and the outfitters that are out there, we provide them with the support to see that their body is still capable of a lot that maybe they didn't know it was. And I think that part like is the key, that failure and recovery. And the failure and recovery, that's what really builds up, like especially that self-esteem of like, this feels like it's going to be a failure, but look, I overcame it. And then also that resiliency to being able to kind of navigate. I mean, the biggest thing with cancer is that is the unknown, the uncertainty of it, living with this anxiety. Every time you go back to appointment, wondering if it's going to come back, wondering how you're going to face that. And part of, what our programs do is put people in a situation where they're confronted with that uncertainty and the unknown, and that can bring up a lot of anxiety, but we show them that they can get through it. And so I think that translates back home for them when they return to kind of like having to navigate the uncertainty of survivorship, which is just riddled with it. So one of the things like this progression that we see, right, is like, do I deserve to be here? And that can look really different depending on the person. It could be because they have no experience in the outdoors. They're not feeling confident in themselves. We have a lot of folks who feel like they have this imposter syndrome. So maybe they haven't gone through as extreme of treatment. If they didn't have chemo and radiation therapy, can I really call myself like a part of this cancer community? I don't feel like it. I don't look like it. So that can show up in many different ways. And then we put them through this uncertainty process, right? So which rapid is coming next? What are the waves going to look like tomorrow? Which climb are we going to do next? And we leave that kind of element of surprise there for a reason. And right when they get to that point of feeling like the end of the week, when they can't handle anymore, or maybe they're exhausted, they push through and they realize that they were capable of doing something they never thought they were capable of. And so it kind of lends itself to this feeling of like, I may not know what lies ahead of me when I return home, but I feel like I can face it now. And Lauren, does this kind of ring true for you? Yeah. Yeah. I hope
Sorry, I
so.
was looking for my mute button. Absolutely. I felt it. I was like, first day, I'm like, what the F did I just get myself into? Like, oh my God. And my body was sore. And like, the first day and a half, honestly, I hated it. I'm like, this sucks. My body hurts. I'm so out of shape. I'm this, I'm that. And then like, the second full day, like I woke up, I was ready to go. Like, you're with the group and, there's a lot of uncertainty, but, for those being like, oh gosh, screw that. Like you're never in a, dangerously life-threatening, situation. The guides are really great. And one day, like I was like, I'm done. And they're like, okay, cool. Just float at the back. Like you do you. And I caught up when I caught up, really big emphasis on that challenge by choice.
Yes.
Really only do it if you want to. Here's an easier rapid to go down. Here's a harder one, and if you fall out and you're in the water swimming, someone's going to come grab you out of the water or you're going to float to the bank,
Yeah, no, and in taking breaks, like I think we've actually gotten better at that. And that's been something I've really been big on is like, we have to meet people where they're at and honor, when they need a break or if they need to step back. And so I honestly, my read is that we've gotten much better at kind of allowing for even more room in that kind of challenge by choice space, which is so important to help people feel like they succeed and they have ownership over their own experience. So thank you for commenting on that because that's super important. Here's the great. I love the smile on this participant's face. This is at one of our rock climbing programs. So quick word from our participants. I'm going to go ahead and read these to you all. Oops, go back here. This experience opened my eyes to how much power our own perspective can have on us. I was ready to give up 100 times while climbing, but I dug deep and in return made it to the top of the rock. It was an important win for myself. I have always bounced back or adapted because I have to. That's a part of survival. These skills made it a lot easier to do when you have friends cheering you on from day one. This trip helped me to realize how strong I am. I could test my strength in conditioning and remember how much I have left to give. I always have people who are fighting through more difficult periods in their journey, and it's truly inspirational. And that part is so huge. I can still hear my guide saying, the river is a metaphor for life. You will face challenges, but if you slow down and control the bottom, oh, sorry, I can't actually see. Let me move this. Challenges, but I can't see that part. But if you control the bottom, so slow down and take control. Oh, but you can control the bottom, so slow down and take control. Sorry about that. My grit window is blocking that quote for me. And that one I think is probably like one of my favorites of all these quotes, and I think so true. And that's the part that I'm talking about, where it's like what you learn out on the river or on the rock or in the ocean really translates to like coming back home and dealing with that uncertainty piece and kind of the unknown of being in the survivorship stage. Any questions, Lauren? If not, I'll kind of roll us in. Cool. So on our FD programs, we sprinkle in traditions. We believe that they bring solidarity within the group, and but we also like to leave some mystery. So I'm not going to do one of our traditions, so to speak, but I am going to ask the group today to participate in an activity with me. Chris is going to help me with this portion. I drew up some questions for you all that you don't have to share with the group, but you're certainly welcome. As Lauren mentioned, you can do it anonymously. But I think this piece is so huge. And this is something I've had to learn about myself too. And it's just like the messages we send ourselves are so important and how we speak to ourselves. And so much of that happens on a subconscious level. So it really takes like this initial step of just being aware of what you're telling yourself and the messages you're telling yourself. And so Chris is going to share, I think, a link in the chat where you, if you want to, you can write in your answer to these questions, but you don't have to. And if you are just dying to share, you know, and you want to raise your hand and talk, you know, feel free to do that, and Lauren will help with that piece. So we have a lot of people present today, so we probably can't hear from everybody, but certainly if you have something that you feel like is relevant to the group, I want you to have space to share that. So the first question I'll pose to the group is, what is one recurring negative thought you tell yourself? And this can be about your core self or your body, either one.
And just as a reminder, as Kristen said, if you can't click the link or it's not working or technology isn't your friend today, you can always type your answer in the chat as well if you feel comfortable to.
Mm. Mm.
Just going to quickly jump in and say there is another slide underneath. If there's not enough space to write your thoughts in this one, feel free to go to number 2 and continue writing in there. And we'll make sure to look at both of them.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
Yeah, these are really powerful. Very real. And then in the chat here in the Zoom, people wrote, my body and mind will never be the same. I tell myself my mind can't deal with it all.
Let me see on the second one. Oh, Chris is typing my, yeah. Thanks, Chris, for typing those in. Oh. Getting recurrent cancer again. This one is really struck me. Why is my partner still with me? I'm so mean to her, even though I try not to be. I'm never going to feel like myself again. I just want to, first of all, I want to say thank you for those of you who are typing and sharing like these really hard thoughts. I mean, I'm getting emotional because I mean, it breaks my heart a little bit. You know, this is not unlike what I heard when I was a counselor and, you know, worked at the cancer center. I heard stuff like this all the time. And I think when you're on the outside of it, it's easy to kind of rationalize why these aren't true. But when you're living it, it's harder to do. And so I think for one thing, thank you for sharing. These are very powerful. And also just being able to like honestly write these out is a huge step in being able to be aware of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I wrote it in the chat earlier, but through my cancer experience, attending First Descents was kind of one of the first times I'd been in a really big group of survivors. This is before I knew of Grit Health, before a lot of virtual communities were available. It was the first time I could say these things out loud that we're all typing, and nobody would bat an eyelash. They would just nod their head or hug you or say, "Me too." So, that's something that's really important that, FD does. And also, even here at Grit Health, and I know other cancer communities, this community feeling and being with others who get it. And you can say these really screwed up things. And guess what? That's fine. Other people have probably thought it too, honestly.
100%. That was like one of my friend who I said who just went to one of our programs, because so many support groups, I mean, especially COVID has added this, right, super complicated layer to all this. I mean, talk about being isolated. If you got diagnosed during COVID and you couldn't have family or friend there for your first chemo treatment or when you were told, I mean, and then also just not being able to see friends and family as much as you used to. I mean, it's like this added layer of isolation, and also a lot of support groups have dwindled. So online communities have become so huge in being able to kind of supplement for that. And for my friend who went, he was like, there are so many things that I have held in my mind, and I was like afraid to speak out loud out of shame or worry of how my family was going to react. That's such a huge thing, right? Like if you're the person and you want to share these really hard thoughts that you're having, then you have to manage like your partner's reaction to it or your parents' reaction to it or your kids' reaction to it. So it's hard to share openly, like this really tough stuff, like this feeling of I'm going to die, or if my cancer comes back, I don't want to fight it again. Like that's a hard thing to share with family because they're going to have their own reaction to it. But when you're with other people in that survivorship sense, it really like there is a normalcy to it that kind of just makes you breathe like calmly and being able to speak about really difficult things. So yeah, echoing that what Lauren just hit on, and I hope that this in some way is cathartic for those of you who are able to share with the group. And I really appreciate this, hearing your thoughts. So I want to challenge you, and the next question that I'm going to ask you, and you can kind of practice this in your own life. So is there any evidence contrary to my thoughts? So is there any evidence that you can come up with to argue against the negative thought that you wrote in the prior slide or on your piece of paper? Hmm. Hmm. Oh, I love that. Different doesn't mean bad, just new. I love that. I am slowly regaining my energy. I survived bladder cancer, which makes my body strong and resilient. Very good counterpoint. I am a survivor. I love that. Plain and simple. I am slowly regaining energy and it will take time. I'm alive and sometimes that is good enough. Man, I'm going to take all of these and like put them on my wall somewhere. These are beautiful. The worst is over. I love this anonymous pumpkin. I am still here. I'm alive, and sometimes that is good enough. These are awesome. Any more from the chat? Yeah.
Yeah, I think Chris popped them into the document that I'm a survivor, the worst is over.
There is one on the second slide.
Oh, thank you, Chris. You beat cancer, you can do anything. I love that. Right? It's just a shift in perspective. And that, I think, with the community piece, that's going on a program like FD or finding a cancer community that you feel really proud of can kind of feel like the silver lining, to cancer. It's like you get dealt this very tough hand, but you find like some of the most incredible people, and you might come from all different walks of life, but if you have the shared experience of having gone through cancer treatment, it unites. And gosh, how badly we need that right now. So, I mean, this is one of the silver linings of it.
Yeah, I saw it in the little side comment section of the document. My situation isn't so bad, so I shouldn't complain. I'm a true survivor, still surviving.
I think that my advice on the complaining notion is that we all deserve pity parties every once in a while. And so you got to at least allow yourself a 5-minute pity party, if not 10, and then you can move on from it. But absolutely room to complain if you need it.
Oh, yes. My Grit Health family, all the people that come to a lot of our things, they know me. I'm a true advocate for the pity party. Even if the pity party has to last 2 days like mine does, you know what? You got to do it. You got to get it out so you can have
right.
those feelings, feel them, get them out, regroup, and move on.
That's right. I support the pity parties. I'm going to, for time's sake, and to make sure y'all have enough time to talk after this, I'm going to move us on to the last question, which this exercise is just so helpful, and you can do it in a couple of different ways. So when I found that my patients were beating themselves up over what they weren't doing in life because of their cancer treatment or what they couldn't do, I would ask them to share their own story out loud, and then listen to that story as if they were somebody else hearing it and respond to it as somebody else. And I found that with most of us, it's easier for us to generate compassion for other people's struggles versus our own. And so for this question, I really want you to frame it like if someone had gone through the experience you have and said to you that negative thought that you first put out there, what would you say to them in response? What would you tell that person? You're a badass. You got this. I love that. You are strong. You are stronger than this disease. You wouldn't say this about anyone you've met in the cancer world. So why do you deserve it? I love that. Give yourself some grace. That's beautiful. I love that.
Awesome. Yeah, these are really great. Like Chris said, these slides, they're going to stay open. They're not, we're not going to close the Zoom and they're going to be gone. So even if you want to come back to them and read for inspiration or, come back and add something later when you think of it, these are going to remain open. And they'll be available to you. And then I don't think I mentioned it at the beginning, but after we kind of wrap up with Kristen, we're actually going to keep the Zoom meeting open for another 30 minutes. If you want to hang out, talk, decompress, kind of have more of our little meetup style together time. So.
And I'll just throw out there to whomever it was that wrote the statement about they don't know why their partner would still be with them because they're mean all the time, to maybe use this question as like, what would your partner say to you about why they're still with you? So that would be a good counter question to that statement, which probably many of us could use, you know, the role flipping in that scenario. So everyone is growing and changing to be better. So true. Keep
Right.
on fighting. I almost died twice. You are strong. Fight on. No one's perfect. Forgive yourself. Huge. You'll get through it. I love these.
Yeah, so Janet wrote in the chat, I've survived AML, endometrial cancer, MDS, and lymphoma, along with being paralyzed twice. It's a tough journey, but you do what you have to do. I'm still alive for a reason. Enjoy each day. Even though I'm still going through physical therapy to gain my mobility, I have gone kayaking with the help of my husband and friends. And then we have from Colleen in the chat, we have strength we don't even know we have.
I love that. Thank you, Lauren, and thanks to everybody who wrote something on here. I really appreciate everyone just sharing and participating. And I just think I can't imagine. I've personally not gone through cancer. I've been obviously very near to it in my work, and I've put myself in the shoes of having that news broken to me. And I just I've relived that experience many times being in the room with other people. And it just, even just getting through that first moment takes an incredible amount of resiliency and strength, just being able to hear that and move forward. So I have so much respect for this community and admiration. I am inspired by this community every single day in the work that I do. I feel a little bit guilty because I get so much from working with folks who are going through and have gone through cancer. And I do want to put out there, like, at least for our program, and there are other programs as well that do a similar kind of model as we do. It doesn't matter if you are, cancer free or you are terminal, you can still show up on our programs and we will hold space for you. So it does, like, wherever you are in that cancer journey, I always encourage people to come out. And even if you might not make it, we will hold space for you. You can show up on our program and we will be able to accommodate for that, however you might show up. So I just wanted to put that out there, and just reading some of the comments on that first slide, and just acknowledging that there are people in this group who are on their second or third bout or battle with cancer. So just putting that out to the group, or who feel like they're not going to make it. So I would love to leave you all with a little inspirational video. This is our thank you slide. There is a way to submit a program inquiry on here, and you can also just Google us, First Ascents online. You'll see on our webpage, like, there's the participant side, and then there's also volunteer apps. So if you do want to look into being a volunteer, that option will show up on our website. And all the programs that we're running this year. Our program season kicked off this week. We did our first surf program in the Outer Banks, and it's going splendidly. And we're taking all kinds of COVID precautions at our program. So we will address that with you all if you have concerns about that. But we are overcoming COVID and bringing people together, and it feels good. So it's also amazing that I was able to embed this in my slideshow because of my technology challenges.
The primary mission of First Ascent is to provide free outdoor adventures for young adults 18 to 39 years old, fighting and surviving cancer. In my own life, I found that every great experience is built upon three key things, and those things being the places that you're in, the people that you're with, and the challenges that you're facing.
My doctor told me about the program, and I looked it up, and I'm like, yes, I'm all about it. It was not much of a decision. I was very excited.
outliving is taking risks and living life, and shit happens to everybody. You just gotta keep moving.
I always think it's not good to wait for adventure. You know, I got a great plan. I'm going to do this trip, and then life gets in the way, and you don't do it, and then maybe you never get an opportunity. So to me, it's just go out there, have fun while you can, and enjoy life. Don't wait for it to come to you, or just make it happen.
Thank you all so much. Thanks to Lauren and Chris for having me. This was awesome.
Thank you, Kristen. We really appreciate your time, and thanks for chatting with us, telling us a little more about First Ascents, and also hitting on some really important topics for Mental Health Awareness Month. So thank you very much.